evening and welcome to the Big Tune Chat with myself, Kevin. I've got Stephen from Geordie Talk, the best looking lad to come out of Shildon, and I've got Dom as a special guest, the Iceman. How are you both doing? You all right?
Yeah,
I'm all right, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. Thank you for asking. Today's show, basically, we're going to run through the list of Newcastle players, give them a rating out of 10 for the season that they've had so far, talk about the impact of the season, and then basically draw up a little conclusion later on of the first starting 11 that we can think of. So shall we just get straight into it? Yeah, excellent. First up, we're going to talk about Carl Darlow, goalkeeper. Stephen, do you want to start off on Carl Darlow? What do you think of the season so far?
Well, he's had a good season with replacing the Blackburn goal. He's kept us in at different points in the game. Kept giving us points. Against Liverpool, he was outstanding. Kept that to a 0-0 draw. It was brilliant. And I know it could be dropped.
Sorry, go on, Stephen.
I can't even echo, that's all.
I don't know whose it is. Someone's echoing, but I know it's definitely not me. I've only got one mic on.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, he probably deserved to be dropped for Dubravka tomorrow night, but he's made two mistakes. And I think that's what's done it for him in the end. That's trying to think of it. No doubt.
Do you think? Obviously, there was a tweet earlier on put out by someone. I'm not going to mention them, but that he only found out yesterday that he was going to be dropped, and it wasn't Steve Bruce that told him. He found out elsewhere. Do you think that's a bit wrong of Steve Bruce to not tell him that he was going to be dropped with Dubravka?
Yeah. He should be up front with his players. Have the guts to tell them you ain't going to be playing. Just be up front with them. They'd appreciate it more if they were just told, said, when you're going to be sat at this game, I'm going to give you a break. Martin back. And he would probably appreciate that, not to read it through a newspaper that he's going to be dropped for the game. It is bad man management to me.
Yeah. Dom, what's your thoughts on Carl Darlow? How do you think you've done this season so far?
Carl Darlow, you can't fault him, honestly. He's not let us down, honestly. He's more than what we were expecting. Once Dubravka got injured. So what you have to say is I think he's due a rest. I think Dubravka has got to come in to the next game because he does need his rest.
No, I mean, I totally agree with you. I mean, I think Darlow's had his chance. Don't get us wrong, he hasn't played that badly. He's made a couple of mistakes here and there, but I think overall, does he deserve to be dropped? In a way, yes, but I do feel sorry for him. He's waited patiently for his chance. I mean, he lost his space when Dubravka came in. Then he's had to wait again and again. And obviously, Dubravka got injured, and then he came into the team. He's played well. He's won us a hell of a lot of points and kept this goal-scoring stats down as well forward, which is really good of him. But I think, obviously, you've got to look at Dubravka now. I mean, the position that we are in, you need to play the best team, and obviously Dubravka is our best goalkeeper. Stephen, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, he's our best keeper. To obviously being goal, you get with him. His distribution, it's second to none. He's kept us in games. And the points he's won us. He had the most saves in the Premier League last season. That was kind of a good record for him. I'm sure he didn't want to be making that many saves. The defence that was in front of him made him do all that.
I think when you look at obviously Carl Darlow, then comparing to Martin Dubravka, Carl Darlow's kept 7 clean sheets this season. Out of them 7 games, I do believe Dubravka would have kept them clean sheets, and I think probably he could have got with 1 or 2 more. But I mean, Dubravka coming in now, best time of the season. Obviously, we're not in the best position, but we do rely heavily on our best team. So I'm kind of glad Dubravka is coming in. But again, what I've just said there, I do feel sorry for Darlow. I hope he gets another chance soon, and I hope next season, if he stays with us, I mean, if he does get dropped, there is going to be a team that comes in with a 5, 10, 15 million pound bid from him, and we are likely to accept that for some reason. Even if we go down, I think he'll still go, along with a lot of the team that we have at the minute. But Dubravka, I think, yeah, I mean, he overall is the best keeper for Newcastle at the moment. He's more commanding around the area. He does come out for crosses. He catches them rather than punches them as well. So, I mean, we do need that sort of presence in and around the box. Dom, especially this time of the season, what do you think Dubravka is going to help us win a few more points than what we would normally win?
Yeah, I think he's an excellent goalkeeper. I think he's underestimated, to be honest with you. But he's worked very hard to get to where he is, and also he's bulked up as well. So it's what you take from him, to be honest with you. He is a goalkeeper, and he's done fantastic. I mean, like I said earlier on, he's become a revelation in our team. I mean, okay, you look at him and say he's probably faced the most shots in the league. So of course his stocks are going to be high because he's saving after shot. But the same as Dubravka, but he is the man, and Dubravka needs. Yeah, I agree. Sorry.
Okay,
I agree. Sorry. Yeah.
Just looking at obviously Dubravka coming in, he's going to have to put up with the defence that's in front of him, and obviously the defence isn't that good at the minute. We are chopping and changing all the time because of injuries, and to be personally honest, I don't think Steve Bruce knows the best defence that we have. I think the fans probably know better than him. I mean, the fans are all talking for Lascelles to be dropped and this, that, and the other, but I mean, when you look on the right side, you've got Jamal Lewis, who I think is an exciting young prospect. But personally, I think he's being mismanaged. I don't think Steve Bruce is the right manager for Jamal Lewis. He's an attacking wing back, you know what I mean? He gets up and down the wing all the time. And fair enough, he misses a couple of tackles here and there, but he's still young. He's still developing. I mean, you've got to give the lad a bit of credit. He's worked his way up, and he's got his first team position with Newcastle. But when you look at him, I think personally he's lacking a bit of confidence because I don't think he's got confidence in the manager. I personally think he's been mismanaged.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was excited when Newcastle was signed. You know what he can offer. Like you say, it's only his second season in the Premier League, and he's only a young lad. He doesn't deserve the criticism he's been getting. Because like you said, he's been really bad managed by Steve Bruce, who we all know doesn't have a clue how to utilise him in the best way. I mean, he was attacking full back. Always got forward for Norwich when he was in, and I thought he was brilliant. No, he's had odd shaky game, but who doesn't? I mean, he's getting used to this Newcastle team. I'll have all the time in the world for him. He just needs that time to develop, and I'll give him enough time as possible to develop, because I quite like the lad. I'm quite happy Newcastle signed him, in actual fact.
Yeah, you talk there, Stephen. Oh, sorry, mate. You talk there about being development. He's been thrown into a squad, and he's not being managed at all. But then we don't have the actual luxury of producing the final product, unfortunately. And that's my thoughts on Jamal Lewis. He's an obvious talent, but he's being mismanaged, and that's my thought.
Dom obviously came in first game of the season against West Ham with a 3-0 victory, and I mean Jamal Lewis played really well that game. What did you see an exciting young fullback that was playing for Newcastle, thinking actually he's going to be quite a good signing forward? And then did you ever think at this stage of the season that would be talking about him being mismanaged?
Well, he come in with quite a hefty price tag, really, and it came from Norwich. He did really well with, but they were relegated, and you can't just pin that on the lad, honestly. But he does need the time. He does need the place to, thrive, and someone to stick an arm around him and say, This is what you need to be doing. This is how you need to be playing. And I can see him actually as this is a big thing. But as a Bale, I think he could move from left back to left wing very easily. Now, to get into the realms of Gareth Bale, scoring goals and fantastic goals, which is going to be even harder. But I can see him moving, on the left wing rather than left back, because he can't defend for toffee, and he needs that instilling into him. And I think someone like Rafa Benitez or even King Clark could have given that to him, and it's not being so, unfortunately.
So moving along the defence from Jamal Lewis, we're going to go along to Jamal Lasalle's namesake. He's getting a lot of criticism at the minute. I mean, he's the captain of the club. He's not going to be dropped by Steve Bruce, no matter what anybody screams on Twitter. It's not going to happen. He is getting a lot of stick. He's had a few dodgy games recently. Obviously, he is coming back from COVID-19 as well, which isn't helping. He's not the same player than what he used to be when Rafa was in charge of him, because he was a voice in the dressing room. Personally, I think he's had a bit of a tough season, and getting COVID-19 didn't help. But I think it's just a fitness issue that he's not the same player. I think given a few more games to get him back to full fitness, because to be honest with you, he has been thrown in at the deep end. He's been thrown back into a team low on confidence, conceding goals left, right, and centre. And I just think, give him a couple of more games, I think he'll get back to the player that he is. I mean, I can't see why I can't see people criticising him on Twitter, but at the same time, just give him a bit of time. Nobody's going to recover from COVID-19 overnight. It takes time.
Yeah, you're right there, Kev. I mean, he probably hasn't deserved all the criticism he's been getting recently. You could say when he was thrown back in against Arsenal in the FA Cup, I mean, he had to be taken up after 45 minutes because he was blown hard, and he was only just come back to throw him in a game like that. I would have even risked him for it. But he is starting to get back to full fitness because, as you say, he had long COVID along with ASM, who suffered with it as well. And say what you like about him, he's a captain. Rafa gave him it. Steve Bruce will say he won't take that off him, he won't drop him. Much like Darlow, I mean, he's had to drop Darlow by saying he won't be playing. He's putting Martin back in, but he hasn't got that leadership, Bruce, to say, well, the so-and-so's coming in for this game, I'm going to leave you out for a few games, give you a break. No. But Lascelles, I think he better go into Isaac Hayden. You know what you get with Hayden. He's more of a captain than Jamal Lascelles is. I think he's had his time as Newcastle captain now. I think it's time to hand over the reins to Isaac Hayden type player.
Okay, Dom, just going off what Stephen's just mentioned there about passing the armband over to Isaac Hayden. So, if Jamal Lascelles wasn't the captain, do you think Steve Bruce would drop him personally?
No, I don't think he will, because unfortunately, you know, you look back to when Rafa Benitez come into the club. Steve McLaren had just been sacked. Rafa Benitez come in very swiftly, really. And then he had, you know, the Leicester game, which was his first, you know, game in charge. And Lascelles was brilliant all the way through. I mean, okay, we lost 1-0. But Lascelles was brilliant, and he gave every single ounce of strength and passion he could all the way through. And then we got to the realms of the Southampton game, where we actually looked very, very, very poor. And there was a lot of the team in that squad who did not want to play at all. They just wanted off the field, which is sad. And you look at Newcastle United as a team, and United as on their history. We are a fantastic club. We are fantastic fans. We've always been in and around FA Cups. We've also been in and around leagues. We've also been in and around anything that you throw at us. European Cups as well. I mean, okay, the last one we won was the UEFA Fairs Cup back in, I can't remember the year, 1969, wasn't it?
I don't know. Before my time, mate.
At the same time, you look at Lascelles, and he come out and he stopped short of naming names and pointing fingers. That's a captain. That's the captain you want. And that's the captain any team should need, is just to point fingers and say, you're not doing what you should be. Now, what I can say from the moment, I don't see a lot of the what he was during Rafa's time, you know, working his defence, making sure everything is sweet, you know, and I don't see a lot of that from him. And a lot of people say, is he being bruised? Possibly. Has he lost any confidence in the team? Has he lost confidence in the manager? Has he lost confidence in the hierarchy? It goes all the way up to Mike Ashley, and he, as a captain, you've got to look at Mike Ashley and say, I'm your captain, we need more.
No, I agree with you. I totally agree with what you said there. So just looking at, obviously, Lascelles, who do you think would be the ideal partner for him? Do you think it would be Kieran Clark? Stephen?
Yeah. You know what you get with Kieran Clark. He's always been a great servant for Newcastle. I mean, he's instilled himself as one of the stalwarts of the team. In actual fact, since he's come back from injury, he was in and out team when he was injured. And he was out for a while, but since he's come back in the team, he's always been Mr. Dependable, and he was very well rewarded with that new contract he signed not so long ago. I mean, he's done fantastic for Newcastle, and I mean, I always know he'll put in a shift when he does play. But you know what you get. I mean, this lad was at Aston Villa for years till till he was bought by Newcastle for about £5 million, and I think it was £5 million well spent considering the defender you get in Kieran Clark. He makes great challenges. He stops balls. That's what a defender's there to do. I mean, he's among my favourite players at the club. I mean, so as I saying his name on the team sheet, you know, we're in good hands. You know, he'll do a job in defence alongside whoever he's with. Will be it Lasalle or Fernandez, a share even, but he's among my favourite players, Kieran Clark.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the only thing that you missed out on that one, Stephen, he's got a goal in him as well. So he likes to get off the corners and crosses. He's not afraid to throw his head around in the box, you know what I mean? So, Dom, given obviously what you've just said about Jamal Lasalle, Kieran Clark is probably one of our, if not the best defender that we've got. I mean, Stephen's just touched on it there, how confident he is with his tackles. I mean, when we got him from Aston Villa, I thought it was an absolute steal because I thought he was playing really well for Aston Villa and they were unlucky to lose him, if I'm honest. But when you look at the defenders that we have now, we rely so much on Kieran Clark.
Yeah, I think for the price paid, he was a steal. His work ethic is really, really, really good, and you can't fault him. The only thing I can fault him on is he's very quickly to kick it out wherever he can. Unfortunately, and that's something that really gets my gourd. You know, do you really have to boot it out? You know, near the corner flags? Well, then that's giving the other team a impotence to come at you again very quickly. I think he also needs to think that we are a team. So, look, you've got to lift your head up, whether you're clearing it out of the box or whether you're doing your job as a defender. You still have to look and think, could I have just made that pass, or could I have made more of that than what I needed to do? And that's my thoughts on Kieran Clark. He is a good defender, but sometimes it does annoy me when he just boots it out the ground. But it's not just beating out the ground; it's like yards from the goal line. You know, he does annoy me sometimes.
Yeah, it sounds like you're really frustrated, to be honest with you. That's a sort of vibe I'm getting from you. But Kieran Clark, obviously, we've just spoke about the highs and some of the lows that he does have. Kieran Clark, he is probably one of the first names on the team sheet if he's fit. And then alongside him, a lot of people are crying out for Fernandez alongside him. What do you think of Fernandez?
Fernandez, yeah. Well, he's along the same lines as Clark. I mean, he was signed for $6 million from Swansea on deadline day a few years ago. And when he was in the team, he's exactly what Clark is. Always does a job. He's like you say, he's got a goal in him. Likes to defend. When if you seen earlier in the season against Crystal Palace, I mean, throwing himself in the way of a ball that was heading in. I mean, didn't have to chuck himself in the way of the ball, but he did. That's what ultimately could have won us that game. Just that block in near enough the end. But he's always been great, Fernandez. I mean, he's among my favourites as well. Fernandez. I mean, when he's in the team, I feel safe when he's in the team. He's another Mr. Dependable for me. He's always puts in a shift in. He's been captain at times, even though he said probably he doesn't want to be captain, doesn't want the responsibility, which you can understand. He doesn't want to take it away from Lascelles, which is kind of the man he is. But he's always there for me. I would have thought he'd been fit for Wolves, but it doesn't look like he's going to be, even though he's trained all week. But get him back in the team as soon as possible for me.
Don, when obviously Newcastle bought Fernandez from Swansea, what did you instantly think? Did you think that was a panic buy?
No, I think he's a fantastic player and a fantastic defender. I mean, he throws everything any defense or any attack, should I say, any attack in the game, and he needs the game time. But unfortunately, he is getting on in years now, and he will be more injury prone than what he was years back with Swansea. He's an Argentina international. And,
he is, yeah.
It speaks for himself. So I've been very, very impressed. I mean, we only signed for I think something like 7 million in the end. And what a buy was. I mean, you look at Shaw as well. I mean, you possibly can come into Shaw, but we signed for what was it? 4 million, 5 million maybe, and I think for pound, our best defender, for money, I think Fernandez is it.
Agree with that, Dom.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you did mention Fabian Shaw there. He was a 5 million purchase, so it is quite a bit of a headache selection what Steve Bruce has when all the defenders are fit. You've got Lascelles, you've got Shaw, you've got Clark, you've got Fernandez. I mean, who do you start? I mean, you've got any choices there, a number of combinations. Who's the best two to go in the heart of defence? You know what I mean? So obviously touching on Fabian Shaw, obviously he's unlucky to get the injury that he's just got. I think it was desperately unlucky because he was starting to pick up the form that we all know he's got. He likes to go forward. He's attacking, and again, he's got a couple of goals in him. I mean, we all remember the goal against was it Bournemouth or Burnley? I can't remember which one. I was getting muddled up. The screamer, Burnley, the screamer from outside the box. So I mean, Fabian Shaw is probably, him and Clark, I would say personally, are our best two defenders. What do you think, Stephen?
Well, it's like you say, we've got the abundance of them in there, haven't we? I mean, we've had Shaw, Clark, Lascelles, Fernandez. I mean, even Lejeune, when he was there, we had an abundance of central defenders to choose from, and Shaw was unlucky to be out the team. Then you could tell when he got put back in for that FA Cup quarter-final against Man City, when he just blatantly pushed the Man City player in the back, he wasn't bothered at all. And I wasn't really asked if he stayed or what. He could have gone for me the next day and I wouldn't have been bothered. But since he's come back in that time with the defensive crisis we're in, with Fernandez out and all our other players out, and he partnered for Fernandez well, Clark well. I think we were getting back to seeing the form he had under Rafa. I mean, I've always kind of followed his career, Fabian Shaw. I mean, I think he's an excellent defender. I mean, he's handsome as well. You got to admit that. But they got him for £3 million. But they got him for £3 million from La Coruña when they got relegated. I thought it was a brilliant bit of business to sign him.
Stephen, he can have my kids, won't he?
Huh? Yeah, he is handsome, isn't he, Dom? I mean, I've lost my train of thought now, Dom. Thanks. I was going on a roll there. You just stopped me. Like I say, we're just getting back to seeing them in the form when Rafa signed him. Brilliant defender, threw his body in front of everything. Always, he liked to come out with the ball. Still does. Gives me a heart attack when I see him go past the halfway line and nobody's tackled him and think he's going to go for goal. I mean, I don't know whether you remember that match against Cardiff where he took it from near enough his own half, ran all the way through and scored that wonder goal against Cardiff. That was brilliant for a central defender.
Yeah, I remember.
He scored 4 goals that season, 4 or 5 goals that season. For a defender, is brilliant for someone like him. I hope he does stay, because I hope he's given a new contract, like another couple of year contract or something like that. We know he's out injured. But I'd love to say Newcastle give him a new contract because I've always liked Fabian Shaw. You get frustrated with him, obviously you do, but that Fabian Shaw is a player I'd like to say stay along with Fernandez, of course.
I mean, Stephen, just what you've just said there is he is an absolute steal at £3 million, and it is unlucky that he is injured. Given he is quite a good-looking player. I mean, I'd like to think I'm better looking, but that's just my vote of confidence. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, 62 appearances, 6 goals. So you just can't knock it. You know what I mean? I mean, he's a good player. Everybody knows that. I mean, I'd love to see him get a new contract. Whether it happens or not is a different story. It is unlucky that he's injured at the minute, though. So we'll just wait and see as the weeks go on. But speaking of injuries, we've got another one in Javier Manquillo, who has started to run again, which is also good news for Newcastle. It was laid out today that he has started training as well, which is good. Spanish player, 26, I think he is. 27, 26. He played for Sunderland. That's the only bad thing I've got to say about him. That's the only bad thing. Don, what do you think?
Mike's on, Dom.
Yeah, but I mean, I know. Just saying Manquillo there. Just saying Manquillo there. I mean, he played for Liverpool, didn't make the grade. Went to Sunderland, did okay. Came to us, and I wouldn't say flourished, but he's improved year after year. Now, he will be everyone's first choice over, I mean, okay, we've lost Yedlin to Galatasaray. Is that right? Or Fenerbahce?
Yeah,
one of the
right.
two.
Galatasaray.
I mean, he did that fantabulous, if that's a word, for their goal during the week, Deandre Yedlin. Could we have persevered with Yedlin? I don't know. But Manquillo is more of the defensive and attacking as well. He can do a bit of both, whereas Yedlin was more of the on the front foot than defending his lines. And unfortunately, I mean, I've speak to a lot of American fans as well, and they said Yedlin is done, mate. I don't know why you persevere with him. So, you know, it's two different leagues, two different worlds. But Manquillo's obviously the man at the moment. If he doesn't play against Wolves, then we're going to have Kraft, who is also a good player, but he's just not that defensive man we need when we're playing on the breakout. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, you've just mentioned, obviously, Emil Kraft. I mean, it is probably looking likely that he will start. Just touching on Manquillo there, he was signed 3-year contract from Atletico Madrid, undisclosed fee. The only difference between the Sunderland and Newcastle stats is he's scored 1 goal for Sunderland, he hasn't scored for Newcastle, which is unfortunate. But that's the stats that we've got for him at the moment. But, you know, he's not, every now and again, he does like to have a shot, which is good. And I mean, one of these days, one of them will go in. I'm quite confident in that. But yeah, I mean, where do you want to start on Emil Kraft? Who wants to start that conversation? Stephen, do you want to have a go?
Yeah, I'll have a go.
I'm getting angry.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't entirely fussed about him signing, to be honest. He come from Amiens in France, and he hadn't really got it. Never really got in the team. With Manquillo playing so well, you never got a chance. You only got a chance in cup games and coming on for the last 2-3 minutes of matches where he's saying games out or something like that. But now he's getting a regular start through sheer unluckiness, if that's even a word, with Manquillo out, because he knows full well Manquillo is the first choice boy at Newcastle. He's the first choice right back. But you say that many times about Emil Kraft, he just gets caught far too much. I mean, he's supposed to be a right back. He's supposed to stop crosses coming in, hold the offensive players up, show them away from goal. He does the opposite. He shows them towards goal. I mean, for the Manchester United goal, the first one, Rashford, I mean, he does well to hold him up, and then Rashford goes inside, and he goes inside with him. But see him out the other way, so he's not like a goal threat, but he's very attempt to block the ball when he got beat by the near post. He's just not good enough for Newcastle at all. I've always said it. I mean, why do you even spend £5 million signing him? He's just a waste of space, and he should have probably stayed where he was. Probably that would be the club for him, but I'd have gone for there was better right backs available then than what we got with Kraft now. I mean, I'm sure he's a nice bloke, but he's just not cut out to play for Newcastle United, I'm afraid.
Dom, just touching on what Stephen's just mentioned there, we did sign him from Amiens. He's been at the club 18 months now, and he's only made 25 appearances. Do you think it's taken him time to adapt to the Premier League? Do you think that's got some sort of thing to do with it?
Well, as far as I knew, I mean, he has played a couple of times for Sweden, and he's been a fantastic player and fantastic player for Amiens. So, you've got to look at the player and think, could it go from strength to strength? I mean, we're looking at Mike Ashley's tactics here. You've got to look at the player and go, yeah, this guy could be worth more than what we paid. Unfortunately, he's not been, and there's not a lot you can say about Emil Kraft. I mean, he doesn't break down play. He doesn't look over his shoulder at what's going on around him. All he likes to do is just play the ball and then pass it sideways because he doesn't want it. And unfortunately, you look at many other Premier League players. Not a lot of Premier League players wanted it either. You look at Liverpool, how much decline they had recently, and Manchester City have only just come to the fore. You look at Liverpool players and you watch their games, and it's boring. It's also, a lot of the time you got to look at. You don't have fans in the crowd. You don't have any voice in the stadiums. Would Emil Kraft be playing as much games as he has with crowds and a full St James's Park? No, I don't think so. Would Steve Bruce still be in a job with a full crowd? No, I don't think so. Even if it is Mike Ashley, he's not going to take that crap, because what the Sky cameras say is what Mike Ashley wants. And unfortunately, you look up and down the squad, Mike Ashley's not interested. But you go on to Kraft, no, I'm not convinced at all.
Okay, so that's all the defenders that we've mentioned. We'll move into defensive midfield now. Stephen, start of the season, we signed a guy called Jeff Hendrick.
No.
He had a good game against West Ham.
Yeah.
And then it started to deteriorate for some reason or other. Why do you think that is?
Because he's not a very good football player. He's like you say, he had a great game against West Ham, deserved his goal. His performance, all-round performance was good. Couldn't fault him. But ever since then, games I've watched with him being in the starting lineup, and he just goes anonymous, absolutely anonymous in games. You wouldn't know he was even playing if his name wasn't mentioned when he touched the ball. He's that anonymous in games. This lad was linked with AC Milan of all teams. AC Milan. When he was still at Burnley. So I highly doubt he were interested. I think it was just more paper talk than anything else. But I think he had his team at Burnley. But since he's come to Newcastle, he has not performed. like we expect he should. He's being played on the right wing, which is not his position, obviously. But he's still, when he's being played in his preferred position in midfield, centre mid, he should be performing better. He should be breaking the play up. Should be making runs. Should be passing the ball to the front, to the forwards. But he does nothing, none of that. He doesn't track back that well either. I mean, he gets the ball took off him. He doesn't even track back even. He just stands there, watches players, runs back. And he gets the occasional goal. A goal against Leeds, I thought that was very lucky to get. But on the whole, I'm just not a fan of Jeff Hendrick and think only positive, he didn't cost any money. But he's just another bad choice by our board. He's just not good enough for me, Jeff Hendrick. I'm just not a fan at all.
Okay. Dom, so obviously Stephen's just mentioned there that Jeff Hendrick was linked with AC Milan, which I really find hard to believe, and Roma as well in Italy. Do you think he would have played better in Italy than what he is playing currently at Newcastle?
Well, what I can say at the moment, I live in Derby, and I have seen Jeff Hendrick play for Derby. What I can say from him is, he didn't get his move from Derby to Burnley for nothing. He is a good player. But unfortunately, we don't actually have, and I keep saying this, we don't actually have the coaching and, the thought to make these players better. We keep sticking round pegs into square holes at the moment, and that's what is the problem. Jeff Hendrick is not a right winger. We know that. We as Newcastle fans, Jeff Hendrick is not a right winger. And that's the bottom end of it. And unfortunately, people like, players like Jeff Hendrick, unfortunately, take the fault. And there is a player in there, I guarantee it. But what we're getting off the back of our coaching and our management, we're just not getting the best out of him. So I'm going to leave it there before.
Okay. Next to Hendrick, obviously in defensive midfield, would be a player called Isaac Hayden, who I think has been personally Newcastle's best player this season so far.
Yep.
He loves the tackle. He gets stuck in. He likes to voice his opinion every now and again as well, which is good. And he's worked wonders in defence as well when we've been short. So I think personally, Isaac Hayden is our player of the season so far. I hope he continues that form. And just going off what you were mentioning earlier on, Stephen, about Jamal Lascelles, personally, I would give the captain's armband to Isaac Hayden. I think he thoroughly deserves it.
Absolutely. I mean, when he was signed from, this lad was at Arsenal. So obviously, they've seen something in him to even sign him. I don't know, he's in the youth setup or what. He's come through the ranks and he's tried to get into the Arsenal team, and he's noticed he's not going to get much room with the quality he had back then. He's not going to get much of a chance, so he probably would like a move. But I wasn't too fussed when Newcastle signed him, to be honest. I thought he was just literally coming on loan from Arsenal, but then I found out he was actually a permanent buy under Rafa. And ever since then, he's proved his doubters wrong. I'm sure he had them when they first signed. Nobody had even heard of him. But he's performed admirably since he's been at Newcastle, and you always know what you get with Isaac Hayden. He can put a challenge in. He can fill in other positions where we're short, and he can score goals, but it's a very rare occasion. That one against Chelsea, January last year was a good one.
I think the one that you're talking about, Stephen, I remember the Alan Shearer celebration on Match of the Day. That's how I remember that goal, because it was in the dying seconds, wasn't it?
I was there that match, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was there with that match. I'd won the competition, so I seen it firsthand anyways. It was a great match. And to think he was wanting to...
Go on, Stephen, sorry.
I think he wanted to leave to be closer to his family. I mean, there was rumblings Crystal Palace were looking at him, West Ham were looking at him. He wanted to move back down south to be near his family, which you can't argue with. If you need to be closer to his family, then by all means. He's done a great job for Newcastle, and you can't complain with that. We would have wished him the best of luck, but since he's never got that, he's kept his head down, he's always kept playing, he's always kept putting great performances in. And to see him get a new 6-year contract at Newcastle, which means he must be settled by now, it's great, because he's another name among the first to be chosen for me. Like you say, I like Isaac Hayden. He's among my favourite as well.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen, you've hit the nail on the head there. I think personally he did want to move back down south to be with family. I mean, look at the Thierry Henry situation only yesterday. He wanted to move back to London to be with his family. So, I mean, you've got to respect players that do that. But he's just got his head down, got on with it, realised he didn't get his move. And now he's got his wife and his kid in Newcastle at the moment. So I think he's a little bit happy. I would have been gutted to see him leave. And I've just realised he's still only 25. I cannot believe that.
He's still only 25.
He's 25, yes.
God, he's been here. I feel like he's been here forever. He's 25-year-old. God.
Yeah.
I'm shocked by that.
So obviously, yeah, Dom, we signed him in 2016. He's made 133 appearances with 5 goals. Did you still think that he would be here?
He's a strange one because he's a good player, and you look at the fact he's, like you said, 25, and he's been around for quite a while. I mean, he went to where was it? Where Steve Bruce was, Hull, and he played as a centre back as well. Yeah, he plays as a centre back. What he came to the fore during that, and I'm very surprised Arsenal let him go for so cheap. And how much was it? $2.5 million, something like that. I think we're getting at least our money's worth now. And he has been a really good servant of the club, and he's willing to play and to play ball with Newcastle. And you can see that every game he comes out in a black and white shirt. You can see it on his face. That is what you want. That is what you need. And he's the epitome of what we as Newcastle fans want. Someone who cares. Someone who comes out and gives 100% every game.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Dom. He never complains. He just gets his head down and gets on with it. But there's a lot of criticism for this guy currently on your screen at the moment, John Joe Shelby. People ask him for him to be dropped. He seems like his work rate's not that good. He's came out in a podcast today to say that Steve Bruce is the best man and manager he's worked for. Stephen, what do you think of all this? Because it's on both sides of the coin. He's not playing that well, but at the same time, Steve Bruce is the best man and manager he's worked for. So why wouldn't you play the best that you can for the best manager that you've worked for? That just doesn't make sense, does it?
He knows full well he can play half-hearted and he still get picked. That's with John Joe. I mean, I think when Rafa was there, I don't think Rafa liked him, to be honest. He didn't like working under Rafa because he had all training to do double sessions all the time. And I don't think he liked that. I don't think he liked Rafa's style of play. Because Steve Bruce is there, with a languid kind of style, that suits him. That suits his play when he's on the pitch half the time. Man, he tries the odd Hollywood ball all the time and it never comes off. Shots from halfway, which he shouldn't even try. He's got the occasional goal in him, yeah. But he doesn't offer much more than that. He's slow. He doesn't track back. I don't think he even deserves to be vice captain, to be quite honest. He doesn't deserve it. He doesn't put his heart in his sleeve like he does with Heisen Caden. And he shouldn't be. I don't think he should be in the team. He's a bit like another Jeff Hendrick for me. He offers nothing.
Mm.
He can have a good game when he feels. Sorry.
It's all right. Stephen, try and keep your answers short because we'll be here all night at this rate.
Sorry.
It's all right. But yeah, Dom, on this podcast today, obviously he came out and said that he hates passing side to side and he hates passing backwards. Obviously, he was told by Michael Laudrup to not do that sort of thing and to go forward all the time. But at the minute, that's all we seem to see him do is go pass backwards and sideways. Do you think it's because there's the lack of movement in front of him to give him options for that sort of pass?
Well, I think for James Shelby, really, he's got the ability to not even listen to that. You know, he's got the ability to unlock defences. He's got the ability to have that foresight to pass to an onlooking and moving forward player. So why is he moving sideways and backwards? Because that's the charge of what he's been given. You know, you pick up the ball, play it off nicely or play it off simply. So that's what he's doing. And I don't know. I think he's lost his legs for many years. Honestly, I mean, when he came to Newcastle, he always plodded around, which always got my gourd and always got my neck up. He just plods about. He doesn't actually run around and try to get himself into positions. He's a massive talent, but he's just so lazy. And I think we need to either move him on or kick him up the backside. Either way, we can get a better player.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, buddy. I listened to the Studs Up podcast that came out today. I listened to the whole thing. And he says in training that everyone's laughing and joking around. The confidence is still sky high, which I find really hard to believe given the position that the club are in. And that they seem to win a couple, then lose 3 or 4, and then win a couple, lose 3 or 4. I think he's totally wrong in what he says there, because when you see 2 wins in 15 or 16 games, I mean, that's not losing 2 or 3 and then winning a couple and then losing 2 or 3. It just doesn't make sense. And he says that he hates being in this position for Newcastle and he wants to try and do better and get the club up the table. I just wish he would show that in games, personally.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Kev. I mean, if he says he's that passionate about trying to get Newcastle up the table and in games, why did he put the effort in to do that? Play out of his skin, ping balls left, right, and centre, crosses, help out defence, track back. Why didn't he do any of that? He's saying he wants the very best for the fans, and that's all. You know what that? That's just words.
Yeah. He
doesn't mean any of it, but he shouldn't be in the team. I won't rant because we'll be here all night, like you said.
Do you think it's got anything to do with them being mismanaged?
No, we could talk all night. Sorry, that's what I was saying. But yeah, what we saying.
I've lost my thought now. About Shelby, I mean, he's you say he should be dropped, and he doesn't offer himself. I mean, he can't even take a free kick properly. He's. You would think in that sort of position, he could take a good free kick because he's got it in his locker. He can do that. He's scored a few goals for Newcastle like that. But any other time, he's trying them about 30, 40 yards, and he doesn't have a chance in hell of even beating the keeper. He ain't Ronaldo. I mean, like he's said, he's got the ability to be a great player. You just need to apply yourself to it and stop being so goddamn lazy.
Dom, anything that you want to add to that?
No, I completely agree with what you and Stephen have said on the subject. He is lazy, and he has been a constant. He can be either absolutely fantabulous or fantastic, or he sticks a full kick in. We all love him. He can give a 60-yard pass, and he's the dog's bollocks. But then the next game, he can look like some sort of a Sunday League player. Honestly, but yeah, I can't not disagree with what either of you said.
Okay, Stephen, what's going on with this guy on your screen?
Matty Longstaff, well, it's clear there's been a disagreement with Matty and his brother Sean with Steve Bruce. I think that's been well documented from what I've seen on social media. I mean, you know what the lad gives? He gives you in midfield. He offers hell of a lot more than what John Joe Shelby does. I mean, you see him running forward. You see him looking for a pass, looking for a ball through. That's what a midfielder should be like. Like Matty, I love the lad. Since he scored on his debut against Man United, he should be in that team nearly every week. Not to be left out of squads all the time. I mean, if he was that desperate, I know he only signed a 2-year contract. Why is he not being played? If he's that indispensable to the club when all this contract wrangle was going on, why is he not being in that team, in that starting lineup, putting performances in, as we all know he can do, because he's a hell of a talent. It just Steve Bruce doesn't fancy him. He fancies Jeff Hendrick more than he does with Matty Longstaff. You get energy and pace with Matty Longstaff. And he's just going to get any of that with Shelby or Hendrick. I think if I was the manager, I'd have Matty in my team 24/7. Every game, every match I would have him in my team. Not Shelby or Hendrick, because he don't offer the application there in the team.
Dom, just touching on what Stephen said there. What do you think Steve Bruce said to him to make him sign a new 2-year contract and then not play him?
God knows. God knows. Why would you want to play in this team at the moment, honestly? And he was looking to be off. You had, was it Udinese in Italy looking to sign him? And then you had Watford loaning Udinese. It was all just a mess. And he's a jolly lad. He wants to play for his hometown club. But if you're not getting the chances, then you want to be off. You want to play in regular football. It's the fact that I would love to have both Longstaff in that squad, because Matt is more attacking than Sean. Sean loves that battling mentality. He loves to get in there with the ball, whereas Matty loves to get forward and get on the end of maybe like that one against Man U, where it was put on play for him really. But if you don't have the coaching staff, you don't have the manager to coach these players coming through, it's just a waste of time. And that's the way I've seen it for many years now, because we've really not ever brought through any notable youth into the squad. Because you look at Andy Carroll, he could have come through and become a star, quickly sold off. We've had Dublin come through, in defence. You know, he took his time to become a big player, and I think he's a miss when he's not in it, because he is, as Rafa puts him, he's a person who understands the game. He's a person that understands what he needs to do and what he's told to do. He's an all-round player. But I mean, you look back, Shaw, Amiobi, and everyone else. We need to be doing more for this youth. Anderson could become through. You've got Ivan Toney, who was brought in. Wasn't given a chance. You've got Adam Armstrong, who was always revered to be the next Alan Shearer. Was sold off for very, very, very little, and now is coming to the forefront. We need to be doing more as a club on this youth, and I think that's what Mike Ashley wants, but he's just not getting it. So, is that down to the club, or is it down to him not making sure his club has not got or has got the right coaching staff to bring through this youth?
Yeah, I mean, Sean Longstaff's exactly the same, Stephen. He's in the same boat as what Matty is. Something's gone on the training ground between themselves, Steve Bruce. Don't really know the ins and outs of it, so we're not going to speculate. But I think Sean Longstaff is a decent player. He has his good games, he has his bad games, but everybody does at the same time. So personally, I would like to see him back in the fold at some point. He does deserve to be there, along with Matty Longstaff. Personally, I just feel sorry for the both of them. I mean, they're both young, and their careers are getting off to a great start with a great club in Newcastle, but the wrong guy is on the touchlines at the minute. That is the only thing that I can say. Stephen, do you think Steve Bruce has had a massive impact in their career, and one day they're just going to up sticks and just leave?
Yeah, 100%, Kev. I mean, like you say, when Sean Longstaff first burst onto the scene, I mean, he was brilliant. Always broke the play up, always liked to go forward. Even had a shot on them at times. But especially this season, I've watched him in games and he's been atrocious. He hasn't played well. He's getting caught out on the ball. He's not tracking back. Half the time, he doesn't even look like he's fit. I mean, he played about 3-4 games in a row towards end of Christmas there, I think, and he played so poorly and he was still getting played. And he just, like you said, as a player in there, you don't get linked to Man United for nothing. I mean, Man United was seriously just in buying them for about 40-50 million, weren't they? So there's a player in, right, yeah. Like you say, he's just been badly mismanaged, him and Matty. As you know, you know what you get with both Longstaffs in midfield, like energy, tenacity. Even against on Matty's debut, they both played magnificently well. It just Steve Bruce is the be all and end all in all this. He's just a factor for ruining players' careers, and I wouldn't blame either of them if they wanted to leave the club and go elsewhere. They were even trying to get Matty off to Watford on a loan day, and he didn't want to go. He wanted to stay and fight for his place. He's very admirable of the lad. But there's going to come a time when you're not going to sit around on the bench and not be in match day squads and put up with it, I'm afraid. They'll want to leave.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Stephen. I think it will come the summer that something will happen, and I think Matty, if not both of them, will be away. I think they're not going to sit there and warm the bench, and I know they earn thousands of pounds in this, that and the other, but it's not the point. They want to play football. That's all they've ever wanted to do. Yeah. They've got a competitive dad, and he's David Longstaff as well, so he'll be giving them good advice as to what they need to do next. I mean, I cannot see them sticking around personally much longer, but speaking of sticking around, I'd like to see this guy sticking around a lot longer, because personally I think he's had a good start to his Newcastle career in Joe Willock. Dom, what's your thoughts on Joe Willock?
Joe Willock, a fantastic talent yet again. He come in against Southampton and was a colossus during the game. He come up with the first goal, and wow, we thought we've got to play here. But as game's gone on, he's become less and less in the game, and it annoys me when you look at even our talent. If you're signing other people's talent, they're just not given a chance. And sometimes, like I said, it comes down to coaching. And you're not going to get that from Steve Bruce. You know, you might get an arm around the shoulder and say, "You did a really good game tonight, lad. Keep it up." But that's not what players need these days. You know, they need a kick up the backside. They need that. Well, you could have done this. You could have done that. They need to be kept on the toes. You know, there was a story from Steven Gerrard with Rafa Benitez. He won the match ball, I think, for the hat trick, obviously, and every player signed he was playing that day. Rafa Benitez put down and said, "You lost the ball 13 times, and you did this and you did that." This is what needs to be done for our youth players nowadays. They need that. You know, you don't need that arm around the shoulder. Keep going, son. Keep going, son. It's not going to do your career any good because you're just not going to learn from it. And Joe Willock, as much as I think he's a fantastic prospect and can go from strength to strength, Steve Bruce is not going to be the person to take them even further forward. And what they're going to get, or Arsenal are going to get, at the back end of it is a shell of a player that they're actually sent to us.
Okay, Stephen. Who do you think had the biggest influence on Joe Willock coming to Newcastle on loan? Do you think it was more from the Arsenal end than Newcastle end for him to get minutes under his belt and things like that?
Yeah, I would think it would have been the Arsenal end. I mean, you see the wealth of talent Arsenal have, especially in midfield, and you know the kind of calibre player Joe Willock is. I mean, he wants to get out and get games, get 90 minutes under his belt. I mean, he has played for the Arsenal first team, and he's been quite good. But I think Arsenal's, especially saying in the transfer window, he's only going to be sat on the bench. He's not going to get games. We're not going to get minutes. So Newcastle's probably inquired about him to say whether he'd be willing to come on loan, and he's obviously agreed. And on his debut, it was a great debut for him against Southampton. Even he talked like he'd been there for years, referring to ASM as Maxi. He said he told Maxi to get the ball into the box and I'll be there. So, well, that's all you want. And I know he's only on loan till the end of the season, but I think we have the option to extend it into a full season next year, which if he keeps performing, I reckon we should bite Arsenal's hand off for that didn't take up that option, because I've liked Joe Willock. I mean, I like what he brings to the team. He's like a box-to-box midfielder. And I know he probably hasn't had a great couple of games against Chelsea and Manchester United, respectively, but you would hope he can have more influence on the game against Wolves and the games we've got coming up, because we're going to need our best players to step up and perform to get us out of this relegation trouble.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there, Stephen. I mean, I could have said it better myself. He has had a tough run of games in Chelsea, Man United. But when you look at teams like Wolves, West Brom, Villa, Brighton, them sort of teams, you just know that he's going to have some sort of impact, given the way that he started off at Newcastle. And obviously, he's not a young talent for nothing. He's played for England before, you know what I mean? So I think the future looks bright for Joe Willock personally. But speaking of bright future and talent, it brings us nicely on to Stephen's favourite player, I'm guessing, is he calls him Maxi, is that right? Sam Maximin?
Yeah, I love him. Absolutely love the lad. Absolutely love him. He's
I think Sorry, go on, Stephen.
Do you want me to start, or do you want me to Dom to start? Because I can go on for ages about Maxi.
No, you carry on.
I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only fan that absolutely loves him and adore him just for his Twitter exchanges with fans, even taking a mick out to Sunderland fans. He's just the king for me. I just love him. I mean, he had this when Newcastle were looking to buy him, they inquired about him, they were interested in him. And Patrick Vieira, when he's manager at Nice, so they said, well, I'd be careful. He said, you don't know, he doesn't really apply himself in training, so he can be a bit of a maverick. He doesn't do what he's told at times. But since he came in, and the first thing he did was go to the food bank. First time in a new country, new league, new experiences, he goes to the food bank to try and help them out, even with a shirt he had after he'd signed. So that always cements ASM in players' hearts, because you just take them to the heart because he just loves them, and I'm sure he feels the same way. Even though we haven't been playing well particularly, we always a better team for having him in the team. You know what you're going to get when you have ASM in the team. He's direct running, his skills, he can dribble past 3-4 players like they aren't even there. He can provide assists. I mean, that game against Burnley at St James's where he won 3-1, that really had a knock-on from Colin Wilson. He jinked past 3 or 4 Burnley defenders and put it in the bottom corner with a brilliant goal. And later in that second half, pinged the ball across the box just for a tap-in for Colin Wilson. And as a striker, Colin Wilson, you'd relish his tap-ins like that every game. And I think we really missed him when he was out with long COVID. There wasn't that urgency there. We didn't have that pace. I know we have Ryan Fraser, but we missed the directness of Maxi's play, even when he started coming back from COVID and he was getting sub-appearances in games. Opposition were frightened, scared of him, didn't want to put a foot wrong on him. Getting minutes here, minutes there. You could say he's still getting stronger and stronger, yes, even though he started the last couple of games. But a fully fit Maxi is what we need. Like I say, we need all our best players to get out of this relegation trouble. And like you say, I 1,000,000% love the lad. I mean, he can do no wrong in my eyes.
So, Dom, just given exactly what Stephen's just said there about Sam Maximin, he is the most attacking player that we do have. Sometimes he can be a bit clueless on the ball. He does do a bit too much for me sometimes with the skills that he's got. Yeah. But at the same time, he is a real goal threat. Come the end of the season, if we go down, can you see a team like Arsenal coming in, putting a £30 million bid in for him?
Well, you look at Maximin. My thoughts on it is a fantastic player. He's a person who possibly, with a full St James's, the club needs. While the stadiums are empty, it's someone that we don't need because he tries things that, you look at Robert on that side, you look at Jamal on that side, they're all quite big, stocky, powerful guys. You look to Maximin and he tries his tricks and loses the ball, goes up the field, tries his tricks, loses the ball. I understand what you're saying there, Kev. You can be frustrating, but I'll put a question to the both of you. How much do you think he is, just as a player right now, on the market?
Well, I would say 50 million, I would say. Easy.
50. Steve, Kev?
Sorry, can you just repeat what you said, Dom? I missed it.
Yeah, just as a player, just on his own, on transfermarket.com, whatever you want to call it, how much is he rated at the moment? year?
I'd probably say in the region between 20 and 30 million. That's what I would say.
Right, Steve said 50. Did you say 50?
Yeah, I said 50.
Yeah. £28.5 million. Now, we only played, 19 for him? So we're already making a profit from... We've also given him a long-term contract.
Yeah.
So that's only going to play its part if Mike Ashley wants to sell him. And you come on to the fact that he could be sold for 60 million, really, very easily. 60 million to like your Arsenals, your Man U's, your Man Cities, very easily. They could become 100 million. He could become a massive 100 million, 120 million pound player with the right coaching.
Yeah, I mean, Dom, you are right in what you've just said there. Obviously, he has been handed a 6-year contract, and I think that's absolutely massive. So they've obviously they're looking to the future to try and build a team around him. That's what that tells me, given a 6-year contract. He's only 23. And I mean, if he stayed the full 6 years, I'd be absolutely amazed. I mean, I'd eat my shoe. I'd be absolutely amazed, I would. I can't see that happening personally, but I do think it's like... Sorry, what was that, Don?
Unless we get the takeover next year, then he possibly might stay.
That's true, yeah. I mean, there's all these rumours swirling around about the takeover. I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'll believe it when it's all in black and white and it's signed. That's when I'll start believing it. Until then, I'm not going to believe anything. But yeah, I mean, when you look at Stan Maximin, he does have a good attacking threat. We did miss him when he had COVID. There's no doubt about that. I mean, do I think he would have changed many results? Probably not. He would have had an impact in games, I think, personally, but I don't think he would have changed a few of the results, like the Leeds game, the 5-2. I don't think he wouldn't have had an impact in that game, personally. Sheffield United, would he have had an impact in that game? We don't know. We're just going on hearsay now. But yeah, I mean, when you look at that sort of player, you've got him and you've got another player, which I'm going to bring up on screen now, Jacob Murphy, who's really surprised me. I mean, I didn't think he was that attacking when I seen him last season. I think he does. He's got the pace, and I think Dom's ready to say something. So I'm going to stop and I'm going to let Dom talk.
Yeah, I think players like Jacob Murphy are an enigma. When he came to the club, everyone wanted him out of the club very quickly because he just looked like Bambi in the headlights. He's come to the forefront. He's done well. He's played right back, right wing, and he's done an okay job, which is more than what when we signed him that we thought we would do, but. Yeah, he's done okay, the lads, and I'd much rather see some better coaching out of him because there is talent there. I see, and he's got a brilliant cross on him. He's got a good football mind on him as well. If you look at him in a whole game, what I'd like to say is he needs a better footballing mind behind to stick your arm around your shoulder and say you could do this, you could do that, you can move forward with this, you can move forward that. Benitez would have been probably better, but Benitez didn't trust him, unfortunately. But that's the end of that, unfortunately.
Yeah, Stephen, do you want to add anything to that?
Jacob Murphy, we signed him for 12 million from Norwich City. I mean, he was like a boyhood. Spotted Newcastle as a child, little baby. If I signed the photos, correct? Him and his brother. But he's always strikes me. He's just kind of player that he's always nearly there, never quite there. He can once he gets in the team, he can go out of it and come back, go out, come back. And he's always like sub appearances. I think you deserve to be in a team more regularly. Just not at Newcastle, I would think. I think he'd be better off on another loan or something like that. He did so well at Sheffield Wednesday, I think he was at, and he did well. When he's had the odd glimpse of greatness at Newcastle, when for the cross for Dwight Gale, that was a hell of a cross, and the goal against Wolves. You say I would play him at right wing back in place of Kraft. As you know, you can get at least a bit pace going forward in the end. But that's as much as I can say on Jacob. If he hasn't really set the world alight for me, he's always in the shadows kind of thing.
Okay. I do agree with you on that comment. I would start him ahead of Kraft. I think he is a better option going forward. He's got probably better pace, better delivery on him as well on the ball. And yeah, I mean, we spoke about Kraft earlier on. I don't think he's fit for the Newcastle team at the moment. But yeah, I didn't know that he was a Newcastle supporter as a boy. So thanks, Stephen. I've learned something today. Thanks for that. So Miguel Almiron, the babyface smiler, Stephen. 69 appearances for Newcastle, 8 goals. It took him a while to get off the mark, but this season, I think, again, he's on the level of Isaac Hayden. I think he's been one of our better players. He's attacking, and then when he presses, the whole team sort of like get behind him, and then they start to press higher as well. But it shouldn't just take Miguel Almiron to start that sort of thing. The whole team should be playing as a team, not watching an individual start and playing his game. Yeah,
I mean, I think you're spot on there, Kev. I mean, you look at his debut against home debut against Huddersfield Town. He was very unlucky not to score, hit the post because he was set through by Isaac Hayden. He was one-on-one. He just very unlucky to hit the post. And it took him that long to get a goal, but you could always see that the longer that goal drought went on, he always kept getting in the right positions. He always tried a shot. He kept going with his grafting. He's a grafter, 100% grafter. He always kept going. But I was so pleased for him once he got that goal against Crystal Palace before Christmas a couple of years ago. And you could see that outpouring of relief in his face that he's actually scored. And he went on a little bit of a run, scoring goals. And he become dependable. Even this season, when he's been playing his preferred position, his number 10 role, he's mesmerising. He's running, he's pressing, his pace is enough to frighten anybody. I mean, the goal against Southampton, I mean, he didn't have to press, but he did. Him and Maxi pressed one another, so Southampton couldn't really get out. That's what we want from Almiron. He's always a 100% grafter. I love him. I mean, I'm sure Newcastle fans love him, but there's some out there saying he doesn't have an end product, but that may be the case, but you always like his graft. That's one way to endear yourself to Newcastle supporters is you graft yourself into the ground. You come off the pitch every 90 minutes like you've done a job, and you know what you get with Miggy. So he's another one of my favourites.
Yeah. Dom, just going off what Stephen was mentioning there, I mentioned earlier on when you were aware that Almiron's the sort of player that presses high, and then when the rest of the team see him doing that, they start to press high, but it shouldn't take an individual to do that. It should take the whole team to do that. And again, Shelby said it today, exactly what I've just mentioned there, that's what happens in training as well. When he starts to press high, then the rest of the team start to do that. And I mean, it's just wrong. I mean, play as a team, don't play it as individuals. But I think this season, again, he's been one of our better players, personally.
You look at Miggy. He's a nice guy. When he first come, he was smiling from minute 1 to minute last. Recently, he's not been smiling as much, which worries me. But he's a player that gets up the pitch. Unfortunately, we're not the players or The players is a wrong word to say. What we've got is a team that's not working on the same wavelength at all. Miggy gets failed the same as St. Max, but there's no one that's going to be around him, and he ends up losing possession, or he ends up giving it away. And unfortunately, in this type of environment at the moment, he's a liability. What I would say is a liability in this type of environment, and that's going off at the moment with Steve Bruce, with Mike Ashley. He's been stifled, the poor lad, and it's something I don't want to see, and what Newcastle fans don't want to see. But unfortunately, this is what's happening at the moment. And I mean, you look at his runs. I mean, his first game was against Midfield, I think it was.
He was against Huddersfield.
Yeah, and he hit the post. Wow. Yeah. We thought, we're not the winner here. This is going to be a hell of a play, but unfortunately, it's not turned up that way. And he is a good player. We can see a good player now, but at the moment, it just doesn't work in our system.
Yeah, I mean, when you say about players not working in our system, obviously we've got to bring Joe Linton into that sort of mix, because he's just been a massive failure, to be honest with you, Joe Linton. I don't know what it is. I think we've overspent heavily on him. When you look at the £40 million price tag that he came with, there was massive pressure on that. And I just think, like, he hasn't hit the ground running. He's struggling to score. And I mean, all these appearances that he's made, he's got what, 6-7 goals, if that? Sorry, I'm wrong. He's got 3 goals in 57 appearances, and we're paid £40 million for him. That is just outrageous, Dom.
Yeah, it is outrageous. But you said, I think you're on about Premier League goals. I think overall, I think he's got 5 or 6, isn't he? Because in the cups.
Yeah. Mm.
But at the same time, I mean, you look at the teams he scored against, lower league teams, which really would expect him, for a £40 million player, you would expect him to score these goals. But in the Premier League, I kind of get where you're coming from there, Kev. He's a £40 million player, and he's not set, the Premier League alight is what we as Newcastle fans would want him to do. Is that £40 million weighing heavy, or that number 9 weighing heavy? Because he was signed from where was it signed from? Was it Salzburg?
Hoffenheim.
It was Hoffenheim.
Hoffenheim. But he played on the right hand side. The left hand side of that midfield, didn't he? Or the right hand side, left hand side attacker for most of his career. And I think he played with Salzburg on the same side. And he's never going to be. He's never going to be a number 9. And no matter how much you coach someone, you can't coach to be a striker and a proper number 9. And that's sorry, I will apologise. And you're never going to be. You're never going to be coached to be a number 9. And unfortunately, if you don't have it in your blood, you don't have it in your thoughts. That's not what you're going to be.
No, I mean, I totally agree. I do think it is the pressure of the number 9 shirt as well weighing down on him. Personally, I don't think he should have been given it. I wouldn't have given it. I don't know why, but I just think the amount of pressure that comes with the number 9 shirts. You look at the people that have worn it, the Alan Shearers, them sort of people. I would have given it to Colin Wilson personally. I would have took it off Joe Linton and give it to Colin Wilson. But I know Colin Wilson likes the number. Is it 10 or 13 that he's got?
13.
13, yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that would be my opinion on him. I do think we've overspent heavily on him, but when you look at where we spent the money, Rapid Vienna, he was on loan. He played 60 games in 2 seasons, scoring 15 goals. And in 4 seasons for Hoffenheim, he scored 7 goals in 29 games. Personally, I don't think that warrants a 40 million price tag. I don't see where they've got that from.
Absolutely not, man. No, I think we've been had with that sort of price tag, you know. We've gone into Hoffenheim to ask how much he's inquiring. They said 40 million. I would have laughed in your face. He's just not good. He's not good at Newcastle, really. And doesn't deserve the number 9 shirt. That's all I'll say on Joe Linton.
Do you think this guy's good enough for Newcastle, Ryan Fraser, Stephen? Do you think he's any good?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the partnership he has with Colin Wilson when at Bournemouth, he always bounced off each other, fed each other, he crossed, he scored, and vice versa. I just don't think he's had a good enough run in the team to showcase what he can do. He's always had the odd super appearance here and there. He's been out injured a few times. I'm just waiting to see the Ryan Fraser of when he was at Bournemouth. And you wait till Colin Wilson gets back fit and with Fraser in the team. That Fraser and Wilson equals goals. I still believe in that. I mean, I was really happy when Newcastle signed him in the summer. I just don't think he's had a good enough run in the team to really show us what he can do. I've seen fans on social media slating him. I said, well, why slate him? He hasn't had a good run of games in the team yet. It's just too early to judge him just yet. I mean, he's here for 5 years, a 5-year contract he signed. So you just wait with him and Colin Wilson. When he gets back up to speed, he's an influential player for when we need him.
Don, what do you think of Ryan Fraser? Do you think he had a massive impact on obviously Colin Wilson coming to Newcastle? Do you think Jeff Henrik sort of like swayed his opinions towards Ryan Fraser to sort of join him at Newcastle?
Yeah, at the moment I think Ryan Fraser is the £350 million player, to honest with you, because he's come in and Mike Ashley's obviously paid. No place for free, you know. The agents take the cash and then they get paid extra cash because they're free. Is there a player? There's a player in there. We know there is, but I'm never sure with Ryan Fraser. He's one player I could never have a definitive opinion on, because he's either so good or not, either playing well or not even trying. Until they get to that point, then I can't give an actual opinion of him.
Okay. Stephen, do you think he deserves a place in the starting 11 for Newcastle this season?
Yeah, I think he does. I mean, you see what he can offer when Colin Wilson's in the team. He can perform great against Everton. When he started, I thought he was brilliant. I mean, everybody played brilliant that game. When we had Graham Jones in the side on the coaching team. I mean, he played that ball across for Colin Wilson, who really should have scored, but I think he deserves to be in the team himself. I mean, I know he had that bad spell at Bournemouth where he refused to play, but I think he was just protecting himself. He didn't want to get injured and jeopardise a move to a bigger club. And I would say he does deserve to be in the team to be more featured, not just the sub appearances every now and then. He deserves to start for me. That's what I think about Ryan Fraser anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I've just been looking at his stats. Obviously, he's only scored the 1 goal for Newcastle, and that was against Blackburn in the EFL Cup. I thought he scored a couple more. I don't know why I was convinced of that, but I must have been mistaken. I know him and obviously Colin Wilson, which we're going to come on to in a second, they do have a really good relationship. And you look at the stats for them two in Bournemouth, they linked up really well, and I had high hopes of them doing that for Newcastle, but it hasn't seemed to happen yet for some reason or other. I don't really know why that is. I mean, you would think that Ryan Fraser would be in the starting 11, but he's in and out the team all the time. It just doesn't make sense, Dom. What do you think?
Well, at the moment, I mean, you had Simon Jordan calling Ryan Fraser a snake and a non-player because of his attitude towards football itself. And the reason why he gave that is because he let down Bournemouth by not playing. Now, he's coming in his last 6 months of contract. Okay, we can say that about Michael Owen while he was at Newcastle. He wasn't given another contract, so of course Michael Owen went, well, when we come down to the nitty-gritty, you know, I need to have myself fit to move to the next club. I think Ryan Fraser did the same thing with Bournemouth. And what you got to say is, you know, you can either take it or leave it and think, if you were in Ryan's position, what would you do? Would you give 100% and get injured at the end of the season and possibly get another move at the end of the season, even though you're crocked? Or would you go, I don't want to play because you're not going to offer me another contract and I'll get my move? You know, it's a tough one, but it's a tough one on either club. You know, you look at Bournemouth, they could have done with them playing, whereas Newcastle, we still could do with them playing, honestly, but it's in between them realms of the reality of a player, not just a club, but just a player.
Stephen, looking at the guy on screen now, Colin Wilson, 21 appearances, 10 goals. He's been a revelation for Newcastle this season, and we've missed him when he's injured. He's 3 or 4 weeks away from being back to full fitness. So the quicker he is back, the better, because we do need a goal scorer, especially this time in the season.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely need, like I said before, we need our best players back to get us to safety. And since Colin Wilson's been in, like you say, been a revelation, and even though when he hasn't scored, he's always worked the channels, he's always worked hard for teams, set up plays, held the ball up, brought players into the game. He can add goals to his game as well. I mean, he's scored he's mainly scored tap-ins, but if you're a striker, that's all you really want. Tap-ins and penalties. I mean, that header against Everton was nothing short of mesmerising. To score from that sort of tight angle into the far corner was great. He's still got, for his age, 28-year-old, he's still got bags of pace to get in behind defences. That's why I listened to the podcast that he was on with the Super 6 and talking about his time at Newcastle and his injury, and he just comes across as a really down to earth man. He doesn't pick himself up or anything in any way. Just like to get on with his football. He's so keen to get back playing for Newcastle. It's you like that in the player. I mean, he came when he was wanting to decide on either Newcastle or Villa. He wrote down his pros and cons on a bit of paper and showed each manager what he thought of both clubs, and that's what he did when he was going from Norwich to Bournemouth. Sorry, and he said he doesn't regret his decision, and that's the kind of striker I like in the team. I was quite excited when Newcastle signed him. 20 million. I think he's been a bargain, even though he is definitely a goal scorer. 20 million is quite a bargain, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Stephen, I mean, I couldn't say it better myself. I think you've totally hit the nail on the head there. 20 million is an absolute bargain for him when you look at the stats that he's got as 1 goal in 2. Where do you see him going the end of this season? I mean, Dom, let's play devil's advocate and Newcastle get relegation. What would you're Colin Wilson, what do you do then?
Is Colin Wilson going to drop down to the next tier? Euro's still coming up for this year. Hopefully, still going ahead. He wants to keep himself relevant and he wants to keep himself in the mix. If you do go down, is he going to go? I don't want to be here because, unfortunately, over the years, how many Newcastle players have been picked for England duty? Which is sad because we've had some really good players. We've had really good players, and they've just been, because we are Newcastle, I feel, in myself, we've just been cast aside because we are Newcastle United. But that's another story. But Colin Wilson has been a massive thing. And a massive, as Stephen just said there, massive revelation into the squad. I mean, he scored 10, 11 goals, assisted another 5 in 26 games, 25 games. Wow, he should be in there or around there. And I mean, you look at Roberto Firmino, Barcelona could snap him up for something like 70 million and think it's a bargain. Colin Wilson's done more this year than what Roberto Firmino had for Liverpool. So, for 20 million to snap him up and to score the goals he has and to assist has been massive for the club at the moment. And we just don't have the type of player in the squad at the moment to pick up the mantle with him being injured at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't be more right there. I mean, I totally agree with what you just said. We do rely heavily on him. He is the only one that's starting to hit our goals this season. So, without him in the team, where's the goals going to come from? You got Sam Maximum, who hits one every now and again. You've got Almiron, who scores a few. And then other than that, where do you look? You don't really... Joe Willock, what would we have done if we didn't have him on loan? Because we know he's got a goal or 2 in him. Andy Carroll, would you start Andy Carroll tomorrow, Stephen, against Wolves?
I probably would. I mean, I did it in my video. I probably would start Andy Carroll, Like I say, I would have probably started him against Man United just to rough up Lindelof and Maguire. He's a nice option to have, even though he's probably his best days are behind him. But I'd probably give him a start, see how he goes against Wolves to rough up their defenders. But we would have to play the Andy Carroll way, hoofball, and I wouldn't like to see us go back to that sort of football because it's just boring football. But if he gets balls in there to him, to his chest, he can bring it down, bring players into the game. That's why the reason we brought him back. Not to necessarily start him every game, but so we've got a player with some physicality who can be put in there to ruffle opposition defenders. We could do that against Wolves if he's to play against Cody and Dendoncker, who I don't think would enjoy the challenge of trying to keep Andy Carroll quiet because a fit Andy Carroll and on his game he's a match of any player.
Yeah, Steve, you just said obviously he's good in the box. He's also good at defending. I've noticed in crosses for corners for the opposition, he does like to get his head on the end of them sometimes and clear the way of the danger. But the only problem is his match fitness. That's the only problem. He does come on for the odd 10, 15 minutes every now and again. If he did start tomorrow, I don't think personally he would last the full game. Dom, what do you think that he should start tomorrow? And do you think he'll play the full game?
Well, for Andy Carroll, if you look at the cup game against Arsenal, I think he played for over 60 minutes in the whole game. And he was a colossus. You know, he's up the other end. He was clearing up danger. Like you just said there, he's got to stay fit to be doing this. You know, you've got to be getting up and down the field. And for a guy that's, what is he, 31 now, 30? It's going to be coming
31,
sparse
32, yeah.
time. Yeah, it's going to be becoming sparse time. And there is a player in there. We all know there is a player in there, but you've got to keep him fit. And unfortunately for Andy, he's going to have to be doing bit parts. But against Arsenal in that cup game, I thought he was a colossal and he did really, really well. So maybe, you know, give him 20 minutes, maybe 15 minutes just to bully the opposition if we're ahead at the time.
Yeah, I think personally I would like to see him start. I think he has got a good hour in him. And I think the Wolves defenders are there for the take, and I think you can't bully them like you just mentioned there, Dom. Stephen, were you happy when Andy Carroll came back to Newcastle?
Oh yeah, I thought it was, especially when he came back on a free transfer, I thought it was a great bit of business. I mean, I think I was speaking to my dad about it, and I think I was telling him Andy Carroll's come back to Newcastle. I said, "Oh, is he?" He said, "Well, he should be a great bit of like business." Because I was saying to him, he'll be put in the team just for the last 15, 20 minutes a game to try and get you a goal, even, and to start your odd game to try and assert his dominance. Because you know what he's like in the air. That's Andy Carroll for you. But I would like to have seen the Carroll we had when we first had him, because he was unplayable back then. He got about 10, 11 goals in half a season, and he was probably on course to get 25 goals in that season if he'd stayed. It would have been. It would be nice to see that side of Andy Carroll again, but you know his best days are behind him. But he's still a good, useful asset to have in the team, even just to punt on for something like 15 minutes and try and get you a goal. Just that sort of player for me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Stephen, sounds very echoey. Who was it?
It's not me.
No. I'm going to have to wrap this video up now, though. We've been through the whole team. Thank you both for joining us. It has went on a bit longer than I expected, so I do apologise. I mean, I've took over someone's Friday night, which I'm really sorry about. So I'd love to have you on again another time, just for a shorter video on another subject. But have a good weekend, stay safe, and I'll see you again soon.
Thanks. See you later. See you, Dom.